So welcome back to Two and a Half Mollies. It's been a little bit of a break. You know what I mean? It may not seem like that because we've been always coming out with some new episodes every week. But we are pleased to have an amazing special guest, Brother Abdul Kareem, today.
Absolutely.
He has a very interesting story, but I don't want to be the ones telling it because you guys are sick of my voice already. So, assalamu alaikum, Abdul Kareem. How is everything? Everything's good with you?
Everything's good.
Okay, just make sure to.
Okay,
Yeah. Don't worry.
Okay,
That's it. Abdul Kareem's not ready for the. He's not ready for the spotlight yet. But
I saw you. I saw an episode with when you guys did with Abdul Rahman. So
yeah,
a couple of y'all was missing though.
Oh yeah.
It was just, I think it was just me and him, but he wasn't on
missing.
it. Yeah.
How did you like that one?
I loved it.
Oh, mashallah, alhamdulillah. It's good that you liked it. It's good that you liked it, and it was amazing because like one of our other guests, Abdul Hayy, he recommended you, and he said you gotta have Abdul Kareem on. So then I said, yo, I gotta book him in anytime possible, right?
If I don't make it in life, Abdul Hayy is gonna kick me on my tail. That's my guy, man. He pushes good, but in a good way. Alhamdulillah.
That's good, man. I mean, and we got Yusuf over here. Gotta give him some love too. How you doing?
I'm okay, alhamdulillah, man.
Everything's
I'm just
good.
happy to be here. Happy to tell the story. I know a little bit about Brother Abdul Kareem's story. So hopefully, like you guys can benefit from some of the story too, man. Excited for the episode though.
First of all, Brother Abdul Kareem, a lot of people might come on, watch this episode and say, okay, I see this guy with a nice thobe, looking very clean. But what's his story? Like, where did he come from? Was he always, wearing clean thobes? Or was he doing something else? Like, how did he start off?
No.
How was your early life? Like, how you growing up? How was it?
Well, I grew up. I was born in Canada. I was born in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. My mother, her husband was in the correctional facility in Prince Albert. While she was there, she ended up meeting my father, who wasn't in the correctional institution. My mother was living a life of, drugs and all of that foolishness. And she ended up getting arrested for a marijuana charge in 1973. I was born in 76. She was, about to go to trial when she just had me and had a baby, her first child. So she's, how a mother is with her first child. She couldn't see herself giving her child up and turning her and going to prison. So she left. At that time, before 9/11, you could go across the borders with no problem. Like open borders, you didn't need passports and all of that stuff, ID and you're gone. So she left and she went to the United States, and therefore we stayed. So we spent time in California for a number of years, 6-7 years, something like that. Then we went to Baltimore, and then I grew up the rest of my time in Baltimore. I had not dope, but other nice stuff.
So in Baltimore, right? Like a lot of the times, like some of the stuff that we kind of see on TV and stuff like that is like, it kind of, for me at least, from what I've seen on TV, it kind of looks like a little rundown, a little bit. It's not necessary. Because the first thing you think about is like when you think of Cali, it's the beaches. You know what I mean? You think of New York, it's the skyscrapers. You know what I mean? So Baltimore, it doesn't necessarily get a fair rap. You know what I mean? For how the place is.
I'll tell you this about Baltimore. Baltimore is the dirt hole of the earth. It's the grimiest. People are no good, but once you fit in, once you learn to love Baltimore, you'll never want to leave Baltimore. Like it grabs you and holds you, and there's nothing like it. Like the camaraderie, even like if for sports, Baltimore Ravens fans, I know for sure that there's going to be no fans like the Ravens fans.
100%.
Because of how the city is. It's Baltimore or nothing. It's Baltimore against the world. That's how they look at it, right? That's
100%.
how they look at life, right? So once you become that, like, I miss Baltimore. I know that Baltimore's no good for me, but I do miss it.
That's home.
Because that's home. That's,
So how many years were you lived in Baltimore?
I lived in Baltimore from the time I was like 7 or 8 until 23.
Okay.
And then I went to prison.
Mm.
Okay.
And then outside of Baltimore
Mm-hmm.
with the Baltimore dudes for 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know what I mean? Like, so Baltimore was still there.
Yeah.
We just happened to be inside.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's how.
So what type of area did you live in Baltimore? Did you live in? You mentioned it was the worst place in the world.
I lived in we moved. My mom was on drugs, so we moved a lot. You know, you get kicked out of here and you move there, and then you get kicked out of there, and then you move there, and then she gets a boyfriend over here. So you end up moving. You end up moving from places, city, county, wherever, like different places. But it was good though, because I ended up being able to meet a lot of people because I lived in this neighborhood. I lived in this neighborhood. I lived in that neighborhood. So it all worked out where, you know, I was happy with it, right? And then when I got, once I, what we call come off the steps.
Mm-hmm.
Once I came off the steps and I'm in the streets doing my thing, you know, we were everywhere.
So, and like, you know, the thing is, like, one thing I kind of thought about, like, hearing your story is, you know, like, a lot of times, like you said, you were moving around a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the one thing that I kind of thought about was, like, the difference in area. So, you know, some people, they say, yo, I grew up in the hood, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, number one, kind of talk about your experience kind of growing up there. Number two, it's like, you know, sometimes you think about it as, like, all the hoods, are they the same? You know what I mean? Because sometimes, like, in a place like, for example, Ottawa, right, you think of like different hoods in Ottawa, it's not the same as a place like Baltimore. So what's the difference? You know what I mean? For people who don't know.
I don't mean any disrespect when I say this. In my personal opinion,
Mm-hmm.
there are no hoods in Canada.
Mm.
I've never been in Canada yet and felt unsafe. No matter where I went, and I don't know, like I hear about Toronto and I hear about Ottawa and I hear about Edmonton, but I've been in these places and I'm just like, you know how they say in the NBA, there's levels to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's levels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this, and yet in my own neighborhood, I felt fear every day.
Wow.
Right? I felt fear every day, even though I lived there.
Mm-hmm.
I lived there, and I go out the street, and I'm 1 block away, and I'm like, what could, you know, I got fear. It's a good fear. It's a fear like to stay on point. I've never had, I don't know, maybe I'm lax now. You know what I mean? Like I could be caught slipping.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't felt fear in Canada yet because it's not going on that level. There's not open air drug markets on every corner. Like where people are like 20 drug dealers on this corner and people running up all day, all night, 24 hours a day, shootings. You know, oh, such and such got shot, such and such got shot. You don't hear that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a shooting here, the shooting there, and it could get worse. But it's not, the numbers are different. The numbers are different. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And then also, like, another thing is, like, even when you think about, like, your early life, right? Something that you kind of think to yourself, like, kind of my experience working with kids is one of the biggest things that ends up impacting little kids, like influence, right? Environment, right? So kind of speak about that, like growing up in Baltimore, like what was your, you know, like the people around you. You said you talked a little bit about like open drug markets, like growing up in that type of area, like kind of talk a little bit about that.
All of that, when peer pressure, I think we minimize peer pressure in life. I think that peer pressure is one of the biggest factors in a person's decision making coming up. The problem with being a teenager, a young teen, and coming to a young man is that the decisions that you make at that age are so important, but yet we're not mature enough if we don't have the correct upbringing to make those proper decisions. I know for me, I look back and I say to myself, I say, wow, was I so stupid? Like I was so dumb. I thought I was smart, but looking back, I was like, man, all I had to do was this, and this, and I would have been okay. But if you don't have that proper guidance, that the peer pressure that I had, my influence was other people just like me, who didn't have any fathers, any whatever, mothers on drugs, raising them. So we made our own decisions, and we looked up to such and such over there with the nicest car, with the nicest clothes, with the biggest chain on his neck, with the whatever, and that's who we followed. And there was the rare person who could slip through the cracks, but for the most part, all of us. When I ended up going to prison later on, it wasn't hard for me to go to prison because my whole neighborhood was there. everybody I grew up with. They were right there. So it was like they had already. I didn't need anybody to show me the ropes because they were all right there.
It was a reunion.
It was a reunion. Man. It was a reunion. Yeah.
So was there like a linear process? Was it like a linear process, or was it like step by step you started going closer and closer to that lifestyle, or was it like there was one moment where you're like, man, maybe you dipped into it?
With everything is a process. You start off seeing something for any time in life when you go through things. You see something small and you have a certain feeling towards it. You know in your heart that it's wrong, but it doesn't, like, the more you see it, the more it doesn't have an effect on you anymore. It becomes more and more of the norm. So, you begin to, you guys, you little kids, and you steal from the candy store. We go in the store and all of us would steal. And, one of us get caught stealing or whatever. And then, one of us would start being like a lookout for a drug corner. And then one of us start holding packs. And another one, you gradually go. And then next thing you know, you get into you're 13, 14, you start banking people, like jumping on people, beating them up for no reasons, dumb stuff like that. And then eventually it gets to where, one of your buddies gets a gun. And then the next one gets a gun. And then you want to shoot in the air. And then you want to shoot at it just, over time, it just gets gradual, quickly. I remember later on there's this, and I always live by this. There's a psychologist called Kohlberg, and he talks about stages of moral development. And he says, as a baby, he says that you'll learn to avoid a behavior in order. Your mother say, don't touch that cookie jar, and she's and he say you'll avoid that behavior in order to avoid a punishment. Then as you get a little older, she says, Abdul Kareem, if you get an A on your report card, I'll buy you a bike. So you learn to do a behavior in order to gain a reward.
Positive reinforcement.
Then as you get a little older, you start doing things predicated based upon how your peers feel about it. If he likes it, I like it. It says you're not functioning properly, morally, until you do things based upon the norms of society, what's right or wrong in your heart. So what I used to do when I was in prison, I had a youth group, and I'd ask them, I said, what are you locked up for? And one guy said, selling drugs. And I said, okay, what is it that's going to keep you from selling drugs? And he said, I don't want to come back to prison. So I said, okay. Now I said, what is it going to keep you from busting an old lady in the head and raping her? And he said, I just won't do that. I say, see the difference? Because you feel busting an old lady in the head and her is wrong in your heart, I never have to worry about you doing that. But the only reason you're not going to sell drugs is because you don't want to come back from prison. So you're functioning as a baby. You're avoiding a behavior in order to avoid a punishment. So until you feel something is wrong in your heart, then you'll always continue to do that behavior, because punishment has never been a deterrent for crime. So as I looked at things, and even now to this day, I always use that spectrum. I always say, why am I doing this? And I remember there was a time where I had to take introspection of myself, even in prison, where I said to myself, I said, man, I got to make some changes, because I'm doing certain things right and I'm doing certain things wrong. And I found out that I have a problem with trying to please people. And most of the people that I'm trying to please, I don't even like. So it came to a point where I was just like, I got to stop asking myself, am I doing this to avoid a punishment? Am I doing this to gain a reward? Am I doing this because of what people think, or am I doing it because it's right or wrong? So that's why so even to this day, that's what I use. So that's, yeah.
No, that's deep. That's very deep. Yeah. I like the point where you said, like, you're thinking like a baby if you're doing things to avoid punishment, right? So the fourth thing is kind of like, is it kind of like, it's like kind of like smoking, right? A little bit like, okay, I don't want to smoke because of the punishment, or are you just not a smoker? Like, you identify as someone who doesn't smoke, like you think it's bad. I was reading some stuff on that. Like,
yeah, well, it all depends on each scenario is different. What one person feels is wrong, another person doesn't feel is wrong. So you have to ask yourself, each situation that you're in, you ask yourself, am I doing this? Why am I doing this? why am I not doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Speaking on kind of what you said, a little bit about the prison system, about how you said that sometimes that punishment is not a great deterrent for people to not commit those crimes. Mm-hmm. So do you feel like instead of, because a lot of times when you hear about America and you hear about like even sometimes Canadian prison systems, mm-hmm. it's like sometimes they want that sense of punishment to kind of deter these people from doing it. So, but in other countries, for example, like Sweden or something, mm-hmm. they focus more on that rehabilitation situation. Yeah. So, do you feel like the prison system should be kind of different and more focused on that?
Absolutely. So many things. They could do better. When I went to prison, I came home. I was like, by the end of my incarceration, I consider myself a model inmate. I'm doing everything positive. I'm, like Islamically doing everything I'm supposed to do. Trying to help out around the prison with youth groups and this and that. And then I got out here and I went from being an important person to being nobody, to being absolutely nobody and being lost. Like they didn't prepare me. I was like literally terrified when I first came home. I didn't know the world had changed so much and I didn't have any help. And it was very difficult. And even to this day, I've been home almost 9 years now and it's still like certain things that I still struggle with that other people wouldn't think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But kind of going back to what we were talking about a little bit about your early life, right? And growing up in Baltimore, right? Is like, could you give us like a day, like, because the thing is a lot of us, like, for example, I can only speak for myself in this situation, right? Like I've never been through, like you kind of experienced like growing up in those type of neighborhoods. Mm. So you kind of described it a little bit, but in a situation towards like kind of what Ismail was kind of saying earlier is like, what was that transition like kind of going into the game? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like what? Because some people say like maybe it was a person that kind of influenced them. It was a friend. You said that it was kind of gradual, but at the same time, like kind of take us through that. You know what I mean?
I had a buddy, a guy named David Mo Robinson. And he...
David Robinson. It's not the NBA player, David
Robinson. Not that one. Not that one. He thought he was in the league. He was older than me. And used to like, keep me with him a little bit. And I lost touch with him for a while. And when I saw him like 6 months later, he pulled up in a Benz. And he's just like, he's got it. And he's like, what's up, my man? Get in, da-da-da-da. And the next thing you know, he's giving me like big work to hold and, ride with him. And I'm his biggest fan. You know what I mean? Like, that's my guy and I'm with him and... and he's doing this thing, and I was learning from him, and then he ended up going to prison. And when he went to prison, I kind of picked up where he left off. I never got as big as him. I'm not gonna sit up here, but I learned like that to make money, you have to go out of town. You gotta, go elsewhere. All of that, right? And I don't like to talk too much about that kind of stuff, but that's part of it, that you learn how to hustle, you learn the game, and you become a product of it, so much so that that's the only thing that matters. That, how we judge people is the money you're getting. Mm-hmm. Where I come from, it's about getting money, and if you're a hustler, but the thing about it is it's a numbers game. So many people getting money. Everybody's getting money. Mm-hmm. And you go like this. Yeah. Sometimes you go up and sometimes you go down. Just like in the real life.
Yeah, in business or something, yeah.
And you go down, right? But yeah, I got with him. I saw that life. And once I tasted it, it's over. Mm-hmm. All that school stuff, all that basketball stuff, football stuff, baseball stuff, that's out the window. I'm gone. Mm-hmm. Like once I tasted it, it was over. Like I'm out there, and it's fun. Mm-hmm. Like you sit up here and now that I look back, I cringe. I think about some of the things that I did, but at that time, that was the life to live. You make your own hours, you do your thing, you having fun, you're the man, you're a celebrity, so to speak, on the streets, and you're running around with people, and you have a carefree life. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't become fun anymore. Like it hits quick. Whereas though all of a sudden there's pressure when the heat is on and you're facing this and you're worried about getting locked up and you're worried about people trying to kidnap you and people trying to stick you up and people trying to do this, and you don't know if you can trust this guy, you don't know if your best friend's going to try to kill you. And, you know,
there's so much stuff going on.
I had a situation one time where we were going up New York and we had a connection, and me and my buddy were like partners, and he goes up there, he grabs the stuff, and the guy's giving it to us on consignment. He says, yo, I'm not paying him. And I'm like, yo, we got to pay him. He's like, man, I already spent it. We're not paying him. So at this point, the connection knows how to get in contact with me, but he don't know how to get in contact with him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, now here I am. I'm worried about the connection trying to get to me to get to my friend. I'm worried about my friend trying to get rid of me because he knows the only way that the connection get to him was to me. So I'm running around with a gun, not knowing whether to dust my friend off or try to dust the connect off or what. Like, I don't know what to do. So I'm kind of like hiding because I don't know exactly, you know, which way this is going to go. But I remember the connection saying one time, he said that the guy had took something from him. And I was like, you gonna kill him? And he was like, he's like, no, I don't, not about no money. He said, you never kill about the money. My friend was with me when he said that. I knew the minute he said that, then my friend was like, oh, I'm not paying this guy. I knew. And sure enough, he put us in that situation. And we were stupid because this guy was like, we could have made a lot of money with him.
Yeah.
But we had that Baltimore small mind mentality. Like, if we see any weakness,
we're going at it.
And we didn't care we was Dominican. And matter of fact, we went back up there and saw him again. Later on, found him, and we ended up beating him again. Like, got back in with him and then took him off again. Like, and then finally he ended up, we never saw him again or whatever. But
yeah. So you guys basically ran off on the plug twice.
Wow.
Twice. Yeah.
That's crazy.
For big licks. Like big licks, like 50 and up.
Wow. Nah, that's serious.
So crazy thing about it is like two things. I don't want to kind of stray from what we were talking about earlier, but at the same time, it's like a lot of times people like me and Ismail, you know what I mean? Like, we never had to experience like looking over our shoulder, you know what I mean? And a lot of times, like, people that are in those type of positions and growing up in that type of environment, it's like you start to talk about like some mental, like, what's the word?
Anxiety?
Like anxiety, right? Because a lot of the time it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to, and you're talking about your friend, subhanAllah, that's trying to look for you. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like hard, like, sometimes you hear these things and you think to yourself, like, this is like a movie.
Yeah, how?
You might think that I'm gonna run up on you right now, huh? No, but did you like? The money comes easy, right? Like, well, I get what Yusuf's trying to say. Is like,
it's hard to keep it.
It's hard to keep it, right? But like, was it hard to sleep at night? Like, thinking you're always just thinking about things. Like,
at times it was. I always tell people, there was a time in my life where I was making like $100 a month. Like easy 100, like not even trying.
That's crazy.
And it was the most. I was this close to suicide. I was this close. On the outside, you see me, I'm happy. I look happy, you know what I mean. But on the inside, like, I'm like going through it.
The crazy thing is, people say like money is like think that too, but at the same time, some people think to themselves like money is happiness. You know what I mean?
Not at all. On the flip side, I had 600 days on segregation, meaning in a room like this little carpet area, about like that big, right? And I had 600 days. 600 days in there, and it was the happiest time of my life. Wow. Right? So it just goes to show you that happiness has nothing to do with this dunya. It's about peace. Because when I had the 600 days, I was praying, I was memorizing Quran, I was reading, I was busy. When I was chasing that money, I had everything was dealing with shaitan. And it just goes to show you, like, shaitan will never, you can chase this dunya for as long as you want, you'll never catch it. You'll never once catch it. You can chase it, because it's not designed for that. This dunya is designed, it's a test. All we have to do is worship Allah. That's it. as long as you do that, everything else don't matter. So as long as you do those things, you worship Allah, you do the best you can, the dunya will figure itself out. The minute you start trying to control the dunya is when things are going to get discombobulated and messed up in your own life.
That's a very strong message, brother, man. I hope the viewers, can relate, understand this, because that's very deep.
It's the truth. Mm-hmm. It's the deep, but that is the truth. 100%. That's the truth. Mm-hmm. You can.
Speaking on Islam, though, right? Like, one of the things that I kind of thought to myself, and I was always wondering, is like, what was that process? Like, how did you come to Islam? Like,
growing up, one of my best friends was Muslim. Mm-hmm. He was one of the only ones where his father happened to be the imam, and I would be around him, and he was the only, growing up, he was the only real man that I witnessed. Like, I met the street dudes, but a man who worked, raised his family, mother and father, in a house, like, had his kids, like, they doing what they were supposed to do, and I'd be around them, and then I ended up going elsewhere and wasn't around them. And then when I got older, around that time when I was like going through it, getting money or whatever, I'm hiding, around him. I called him one night. I was all drunk. Called him. I said, I need to take Shahada. I need to make some changes. Da 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 da. And then he's like, all right, come down to the store tomorrow. He had a store.
So you were always contemplating this. You always had that in your mind that Islam was something that you could see yourself.
Yes, because of the strength that I saw in him. When I was a little kid, that's the only time I really felt safe, when I was around him. When I was around him, I felt like I was in a good place. And I know he had something that I wanted. I just didn't know how to get it. And I was like, maybe this is, like it was like a cry for help. And I went and I took Shahada, but I didn't do anything else. I just took Shahada and went to the masjid every now and then, went to Jummah every now and then. Didn't know how to pray, didn't know nothing, just following what people doing, knew some things because I had been in their house, heard some hadiths, this, that, and the other, but it wasn't until I got in prison that I was like, okay, I need to learn this, and then I just went.
Was it because you kind of felt like the place kind of gave you that peace that you were looking for? Like whenever you would go to the mosque or go...
It didn't really give it to me at that point. I'm not going to, like, it didn't really, because I didn't know, it was all too much. You know what I mean? Like if you go, it's like if you went to a masjid and they were speaking giving a khutbah in a different language and you didn't understand it, right? You know what I mean? If you don't understand anything, I'm getting little pieces, little bits and pieces of it. I like the brotherhood. I always liked the brotherhood of Islam and all that, but it wasn't until I got to prison where I tasted the sweetness of Iman. Mm-hmm. Once you taste that, it's like that saying when I said once I got a taste of that drug life. Well, the same thing with Iman. Once you get a taste of that Iman, you just want to, you love it and you hold on to it and you chase it, and you know what I mean?
It's crazy because like us, alhamdulillah, it's a blessing that we don't realize or appreciate, but like all three of us, we were born Muslim. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have that. I was even talking about this with Abdul Kareem as well, right? Mm-hmm. We were born Muslim, so we don't really know that feeling between not becoming Muslim and becoming Muslim. Mm-hmm. So talking to you about this made me realize, and I'm sure the others realize, that the struggle as well, getting used to it, because you're going into like a whole new world. Mm-hmm. And to be more patient, because like it took you a bit of time to realize, like with knowledge, mm-hmm. Now everything started to make sense. Mm-hmm. But it also made me realize, okay, now when I see someone who just reverted, what to focus on, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but if people, and it's already written. Some people are going to hit it right off the bat, and they just take off. Other people, it's not so much. Other people, so it all depends on the individual, what's written for him. Mm-hmm. Like some people, I look at certain people and they just like, mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They take Shahada, and next thing you know, they're half of the Quran, and I'm like, dag, like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So, and then other people, it's not so much. So it all depends on your situation, right? So,
but there definitely got to be like more programs for readers.
Yeah, there has to be, but a person has to want it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you get what your hand calls for. If you want it, it's there for you, right? And especially in Ottawa, alhamdulillah, Ottawa, they got a lot of stuff available. I guarantee you, there's a class tonight somewhere. somewhere. What is it? Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
There's some class somewhere Tuesday night, right? Wednesday night, there's gonna be some class somewhere. So if you want it, go get it. You know what I mean? Like so, yeah.
But you kind of talked about a little bit about your experience in jail, or like little small things, but kind of what got you there? Like, what was if you don't mind us asking, you know what I mean? Like, what was the situation that kind of got you to that point?
I shot 2 people. I ended up shooting people. I got into a bunch of beefs, and I was in all kind of beefs, and I ended up shooting a guy who I did something to me, and shot him a bunch of times, and he lived, and the other person lived, and they told on me, and they did something to me, and I didn't tell on them. So it was like one of those things.
Damn. And then I remember I happened to see, like, you kind of, I don't know if we referenced it at the beginning, but, you know, speaking about your story on another podcast, you kind of talked about, like, going on the run, right? Like, first of all, that's a crazy experience. You only hear that kind of stuff in stories. Yeah. So kind of, if you don't mind us asking, like, what was the process like during that time? Well, it's like, what made you kind of feel, like, obviously, you don't want to take the time, you know what I mean?
No. Yeah, you don't want to take the time. Number one, I didn't know I was going to get 30 years.
Yeah.
Right. So what happened was after I committed my crime, I realized that the people lived. My face is on the news. And, of course, you go in panic mode. Like, you go in panic mode. Here you are on the news. You know, like, now, once again, you don't know. They're saying that, you know, there's a reward. So, like, I don't know if this guy or that guy is going to turn me in for the reward, because that's how it is. People, anything for money. So I know I got to get away from everybody. And I ended up leaving. I went to Philadelphia, which is like an hour away from Baltimore. Went there for like a week, and then I ended up making my way to Canada, because I had a father in Canada and didn't really know him. And so I made my way to Canada, got into Canada, and when I got up here, I was just like, this ain't working. This isn't going to work for me. So I was like, I'm going back. And on my way back, it was either I was contemplating suicide, because it becomes too much. Everything was too much. I was like, man, I can't do this. I don't know, like, if I can handle all of this, the pressure. Like, some people can handle being on the run. For me, that wasn't for me. So I was like, I can either go back and try to deal with the situation, or take my life. And they ended up catching me at the border. And as soon as they stopped me at the border, trying to come back to Baltimore, I knew they had me. So I told them, who I was, what was going on. But it wasn't if I was going to kill myself, it was when. Because I was like, right away, when I got in there and I saw the cells and all that, I was like, I can't do this. And I went in there, and I remember, like, making dua. After a few days, I had a little Quran that I had with me, and I asked the God, could he bring it to me? And I remember making dua and saying to asking Allah to give me the strength. And I remember making this sincere dua, and all of a sudden I got strong. I got, like, strong. When I say like strong immediately, like, oh, I got this. Whatever comes, whatever happens, I got this. I'm going to make the best of this. And then, I got back, and I was, started learning my prayers, making my prayers, doing everything I was supposed to do. And everything became easy for me. Nothing became overwhelming. And when the time came for me to go to trial, I did not think I was going to get that much time. Excuse me. So when they offered me life, all suspended, but 45 years first. And I denied that. I was like, no. So my lawyer came back and came back and was like, life all suspended, but 30. Then they took the life off the table, and they gave me 30 years for one, 30 years for the other, 5 years for the handgun, 5 years for the other handgun, like two handguns. So it was 30, 35, and 5, and they just consolidated it, right? So it just ended up being 1 30-year sentence. The first 5, no parole. And that was my final offer. Or I can go to trial. I can't go to trial and beat it, because I got 2 people in the courtroom saying that I shot them, who pointed me out of a thing. So I'm not going to beat them. Yeah. So I took the 30. I took the 30, and it didn't hit me. But alhamdulillah, at that time, I had already had like 5-6 months of praying, of doing everything right, of understanding that, you know, I'm going to make this bad situation into a good situation. I'm going to change. And it's funny because each time that I thought I was ready to go home, looking back, I really wasn't until it finally, you know, Allah's plan is perfect. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So finally, I got in there, and when I went there, I really couldn't read or write too good. So I had to, you know, like go to school, ended up getting a college degree while I was in there.
Wow.
Doing everything that I could to try to better myself. But prison, man, is beauty in it. There's beauty in it in terms of being able to learn, having time to yourself, being able to work on yourself. But the overall ramifications of it, like I have diabetes right now, really bad. And it's due, I know for sure, because of eating that food that's no good for you for all those years. Mm-hmm. Like eating those things. And now I work in construction in the oil field. And to this day, if a safety officer comes to me, I go through like a little bit of anxiety, thinking that it's like a CO coming to my cell, shaking. Yeah. The safety officer don't mean me no harm, but for me, I know I'm handling it different. I gotta decompress. I gotta say, okay, it's just a safety officer. He's not really trying to bring you harm. But to me, it feels like that. He's checking my paperwork. I'm getting nervous. Like, do I got all my paperwork on me that, you know, to do this job? I'm going through. If I'm going somewhere and the police pull me over, the things that I'm going through may not be the same the things that you'll go through.
It's kind of like PTSD a little bit.
PTSD. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going through all of that. So many different things. Life had transformed so much and went so far past me that I struggle with create a password, create an account. Man, I'm going through it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going through.
I'd even clock that, man. Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, I'm going through it. Like I'm going through it. I remember the day they gave me a debit card, and I just went up to the lady that gave it to me, and I just went up to her, and I had tears in my eyes, and I was just like, "Can you help me with this? I just did 16 years in prison. I don't know how to do this." And she just was like, "Yeah, just put it in here." And within 5 minutes, I had it. But for me at that moment, I felt like the whole world was watching me. So it's like all of those things like prison takes from you, they take your good years. So it's not a place that, you know, we talk about living that life and all that stuff. Man, the best life is just being out here, living your life, being able to go, and if you want to buy whatever you want to buy at the store, if you want to go downstairs to the spot and get this, and you want to go out for a walk, and you want to have a wife and children, and
it's freedom.
All of that stuff. Freedom. Yeah. It's the best way to be, man. That's the, you want to travel and go to Mecca and all of that.
Yeah, no, and our brother Abdul, he said the same thing too. He said when he got out, he said just freedom itself. He said, I realized how much of a beauty it was, you know?
Yeah, you don't realize it. You don't realize it, yeah. You don't realize it. I remember my first day, May 21st, 2015, and I came home, and they dropped me off in Niagara Falls. And here I am, like, I don't know where to go, which way to go. And every little thing that I saw, if I saw a kid and his mom, I start crying, and I'm just like walking around with my bags, and everything's happening so fast, and I don't know what to do. I don't have, like, I got prison ID, and I don't know, you know, just not knowing what to do. And they just literally just drop you off. Just drop me off, and was like, all right, go. And I'm just like, now what? And it was a struggle, man. It was a tough time. That first year home was just as tough as all 16 years in prison.
Really?
Even though I was home. And I know I got to hold on, but it was times where I got a job, and I go on weekend. I don't know anybody. I have no friends. Here it is. I'm almost 40 years old, and I'm trying to meet friends. And your story's different from, you don't know who you can open up to. And me, I'm an open book. I just tell people, yeah, look, man, this is what it is. I was locked up. All my jobs, everybody knows, like, because prison has been such a part of my life that I talk about prison every day. I talk about it. My wife hears about it. My friends hear about it, because it's a major time period of my life was in prison. So it still has an effect to this day. You know what I mean? Like, and it explains a lot of things. I told, when I first started in the oil field, I said, listen, if you think if I'm falling behind in something, it's because I am behind. I'm trying to catch up. So be patient with me. Let me learn. And you know, now I got it, right? Alhamdulillah.
You got it for real, huh?
The crazy thing is like, my bad, Ismail, for cutting you off, but it's like we kind of talked about this before, but it's like with Abdul, it's the fact that sometimes, you know, like the smallest, sometimes it could be like less than, you know, like 5 minutes of a situation where something happened. You said that, you know, you had shot somebody. A time less than 5 minutes cost you 30 years.
30 years, yeah.
And it's,
you know, it's funny. My mom, you know, she may Allah have mercy on her.
Ameen.
She passed away in November. She took shahada.
Oh, alhamdulillah.
Right?
That was a great news.
Yes. So I remember her telling me, because she was wise, you know, in her ways. I remember her telling me, she said, never make an irreversible decision in a negative state of mind, right? And I remember after my last bullet came out of that gun and I was out of bullets and I saw the person still running, I knew I was going to jail, right? I heard her words. Like, as I'm doing, I remember her saying, never make an irreversible decision, like, meaning calm down first. Calm down first before you make an irreversible decision. Don't let that anger, because we know anger comes from the shaitan. Don't make that decision while you're angry. That's why they say, you know, if you're sitting, lay down. If you're standing, sit down. If you're sitting, lay down. Yeah. It's to let that calm down. Then you make your decisions. Because if you make it anger-based, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to make the wrong decision.
Kind of was like a flash. Like some people experience that. Astaghfirullah. I'm not saying I believe it, but some people say that they get like what's the word for
flashback?
Not a flashback, but like right before a specific like big moment in their life, they kind of see like a vision of what was going on or something that has been said. So in that situation for you, it was your mother talking to you about that situation or telling that lesson. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was, but it was after. It was already after. Oh, okay. As soon as it was happening, I remember her saying, I was like, "Dang, I shouldn't have done this." You know what I mean? Like now, I could hear her words. You know what I mean? And she, you know, one of my "I told you so" moments that a mom always has.
Yeah.
I told you. You know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But like you brought up a great point especially about your experience, and you know, on a more serious note, especially about how you were contemplating suicide as well on the run. And you know, this is something that it's a growing problem, especially for a lot of people in our community. And it's something that's rising in numbers, right? Especially in the Muslim community. So, especially coming from someone, you came from a lot of trials and tribulations. What advice would you give to someone who's going through the same things?
Never make an irreversible decision in a negative state of mind. Suicide is an irreversible decision. And if you're thinking about it, it's in a negative state of mind. Make dua. Make dua. Dua is so important, right? Make dua and understand that, you know, with every struggle comes ease, right? Every difficulty comes ease. You're going to go through times in life where it's difficult, and then there will be ease. And this is from the mercy of Allah, right? So if mental health is important, and nobody knows ourselves the way we do. Sometimes, like I had a thing where I never missed a day of work since I've been in the oil field. And finally I was like, you know what? Like, it was becoming too much. I found myself like everything was becoming too much. I was like, man, I'm taking a day off tomorrow. And I finally took a day off and I felt good. I was like, I needed that day to just recuperate, get myself back together. I needed that day. I'm human. You know, you need that day. You need that rest. You need that talk. You need to call that brother. You need to such and such, you know, whatever it is that you need, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, go for it. And what you'll find is the closer you are to Allah, the better you are to handle adversity. You know, we always make dua for, I remember our brother told me, said one time, I said, you know, we make dua for patience. He said, do you think you're going to make dua for patience and then Allah's not going to try you with certain things to see if you can handle that patience, right? So understand that, remaining patient is not always easy, right? So we have to just be patient, understand that this life is quick. It's quick. It's just a test. And when you really put it into perspective like that, it'll make all that foolishness about killing yourself and all of that go away, because it's just a test.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much money you die with. Doesn't matter. None of that matters.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just, this life means nothing, and if you always put that at the forefront, that's it. That'll make everything easier.
Kind of on a side note, judging from what we just talked about right now, you talked a little bit about like these stints of like contemplating suicide, or even like flashes of PTSD. So like in situations like that, like on a side note, a lot of people kind of not necessarily go through a very similar situation, but experience those same things, right? Mm-hmm. And as men, sometimes we are not used to talking about our feelings, or like there's outlets, for example, going to therapy or something like that, or maybe talking to a family member or playing ball. But a lot as men, sometimes we're told, right, like we gotta keep it in, you know what I mean? Because as a man, I gotta portray that I'm a big dog, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So kind of speak on that. Like you kind of said like what type of advice you would give, but what do you think about that? Because sometimes the situations is like, even now going to prisons, like I don't know the outlets you could go to. So experiencing those things is like, now it's probably like amplified, because now I'm just sitting to myself. I have all this time to just think, so sometimes some people would even go crazy. So kind of speak on that a little bit.
Well, manhood has nothing to do with needing help. All men need help. Mm-hmm. All men are going to have times where they need help. And it's not a form of weakness to ask for help. It's actually a form of strength. So when you recognize a problem and you recognize something within yourself and you ask for help, then this is a good thing. And we put this stigma and this false reality, like, I hate to tell you, I'm as tough as they come. But when it comes to, I'm keeping it real, these are what I went through. And I guarantee you that a lot of the things that a lot of people never went through, a lot of things. They ain't been shot, all that stuff. That stuff has nothing to do with needing help. Like we gotta get that. We gotta throw that out the window. If you need help, you need help. Like if talking to someone can make you feel better, then you need to find that and talk to that people. And we need to be available. We need to stop putting so much pressure on kids and young guys, and understanding what they go through. I got a 12-year-old stepson, and I always, I talk to him, and I tell him, say, look, your dad, respect you. No, don't say that about your dad. Do this, that. I want to be there for him. I want to be that voice. I want to be that ear that if he needs it, I'm there for him, because that's what they need. They don't need you to tell them, oh, man does this, man does that. No, man. If you need help, you need help. If you're going through something, I'm here. You can talk to me about it. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So
it's crazy because like nowadays, especially like in like I could talk about like experiencing like growing up in a Somali household for us three. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Sometimes like even some people, subhanAllah, like they grow up without their fathers being in their lives, and you kind of talked about a little bit about your father not necessarily being in the household, right? And he was living in Canada. So the crazy thing is like sometimes like alhamdulillah, you're talking about your stepson, it's like he has that outlet to have his his parents in his life, and having you in his life, you know what I mean? Having to talk to, but some people don't have that outlet, and the thing is like even growing up in the streets, sometimes it's like even that sense that you're kind of talking about is like it's seen as a weakness. You know what I mean? And it's powerful what you're saying, the fact that you're more of a man if you go out of your way to seek it, because if at anything you're trying to better yourself, you're in a place of what's the word that I could use? Vulnerability. Yeah. And now you're trying to get back to your normal self, right? And I think that a lot of the times in situations like you need people like that. Or for example, and I commend you for that, like being somebody that is in the ear of your stepson and being there to talk to him, because some people don't have that. You know what I mean? Especially, in certain households. I know that even in the States, some households, some people don't even grow up with their parents. You know what I mean? Or like just with their mom, right?
You got to run your race too. Everybody has to run their race in life. You know, you run your race. Don't worry about I can't keep up with you. I can't keep up with you. I can't keep up with you. I gotta do my thing, and inshallah it'll be good enough. You know what I mean? Like if I try to keep up with everybody, I'm just gonna get all messed up or whatever. Run your race, man. Do your thing. You guys are gonna try to keep up with a podcast who's got 10 million followers. You're gonna go crazy.
And that's and I feel like that's the problem nowadays in life. People they compare their life to other people and be like, man, I'm not there yet. You know what I mean? But it's like, do your own thing. You know, you're gonna get there.
About a week ago, I was at a job, and there was a guy. He was like, kind of like my mentor when I first started. We were at the same level, but he had been doing it just a little bit longer than me. So he saw me. He said, "Hey, man, what's up, man? How you doing, man?" Da, da, da. It's like, well, you know, what year are you now? What year are you? And I was like, you know, I don't want to brag. I'm finished.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what you mean? I'm like, I'm a journeyman. He's like, you're a journeyman? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I already know what year he is because I heard it from somebody, but I don't want to throw it in his face. So later on during the day, I pulled him up. I said, listen, man. I said, look, we're about the same in this. We're about, I'm no better than you. You taught me, you know, the little things. Man, run your race. Just get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about, like, because he was, I could see he's beating himself up like, man, I should be a journeyman by now. He did it, but everybody got to run their race, you know. So you can't worry about the next man or whatever, and you have to be humble enough to realize that life happens. Some people are going to be better than you, and you're going to be better than them, and it's how you handle it, man.
No, for real, yeah. So it's like, focus on your plate. Don't look at another man's plate.
Don't look at another man's plate, man. Do your thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at another man's plate, yours is getting cold, huh? your food's getting cold.
That's right, bro.
Yeah, real question. Yours getting cold? Your food's getting cold. When you look at another man's plate.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, but you know, we don't have to talk about this part, but one thing that I kind of found like really interesting about your story, like on the side, was the fact that, you know, like coming from Baltimore, a lot of the time, like the biggest thing that you hear about is the story of The Wire. You know what I mean? And one thing that I found very interesting is that, you know, you actually had friends that, you know, their stories were kind of used within the show The Wire. So you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I know all the real guys. Like what they did was how The Wire was created was they took characters from our neighborhood, and there's really a model. There's really you guys remember the guy who was a boxing coach, Cuddy Wise?
I heard about him, yeah.
He was like he came out of prison and he couldn't shoot the guy at the end, and he asked Avon, can he start a gym up and all of that stuff. That's really a guy, Dennis Wise. There's really a stringer. I don't know the real stringer, but there's really so many of them. Bird, it's a bunch of, most of the characters. Mozon, the little guy with the bow tie.
Yeah.
It's a real Clarence Mozon, but he wasn't. So they took all these characters, like Marlo, for instance, they call him Marlo Stansfield. There's two brothers, Marlo and Tamir. Tamir's last name is Stansfield. Marlo's first name is Marlo. So they took Marlo's first name and Tamir's last name and made a character. So we all know the real ones. Yeah. And they made the show, like David Simon was a reporter for the Baltimore Sun, and he got together with Ed Burns, and the show pivoted off of a show called Homicide. There was a show called Homicide based out of Baltimore, and then they took that show and they took all the crime reports from 1986 and used most of the characters using those, and then we hear our names in the show and stuff like that, and see our little blocks, and yeah. So
what neighborhood was it?
I was West Baltimore.
Oh, West Baltimore. Okay. So like you were, just take like a step back. So once you faced the time, like, okay, yeah, you're facing 30. What was your feelings?
I'm facing double life.
Double life. 160. So you can't, like, that's America's prisons, huh?
Yeah, that's what I'm facing.
So you're facing 165.
Double life and
Yeah.
165.
So what's
double life?
That just means no chance.
That means no chance. Life in Baltimore, life is life.
40 years?
Life is life.
Oh, damn.
Life. You die.
Yeah, you die.
You die.
And just
Two
in
times, basically.
Huh?
You died.
Yeah.
Came back.
Came back.
Died.
So even if even if it's come back, you got to do life again.
Yeah, double.
Man.
I was facing double life in 165 years. If I would have got maximum on everything.
Oh, okay.
Right, that was what I was.
Wait, I got a question. Is like what you did, like if somebody like if I was to do it right now, is it the same charges, same numbers and stuff, or is it different?
See, okay. What they do is attempted murder, what I got charged with, and murder are the same. What they do is it all depends on the degree. First degree means I have intention on killing this person. So all they're saying is that you had intention on murdering this person, you just no good at it. You failed.
You failed.
That's what they're saying, right? You wanted to, you just failed, right? So we're gonna charge you as if you didn't fail. So that's how they do it. Like first degree attempted murder is worse than second degree murder.
Oh, okay.
What I mean?
Yeah.
Because second degree means that you killed someone, but you didn't mean to. It just happened at the moment.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's all about the degree: first degree, second degree, and then manslaughter, right? So that's how they look at it, right? So it still carries life. First degree attempted murder carries life. I had 2 counts, so I was life, and then all of that. So
about sorry to go in a circle, but you know about the wire and stuff like that. Were you with those guys in prison?
yeah, all of them.
Okay.
I talk to the real ones all the time.
Okay, so I have a question. Like this would be interesting. This is actually something that like young guys who are maybe in this lifestyle, maybe if they're listening to this, this is like a great realization for them. What was your thought process when you saw, okay, there's The Wire, critically, like one of the best shows, like most critically acclaimed shows out, and it's about your friends, and your friends are in prison, probably not making any money out of it. What was in your mind when you saw that?
I used to use that as an example because what happened was when I was doing the youth groups in the prison, I created my own youth group and we did this, and they'd be like talking about like we'd see The Wire, we watched it on TV and all of that, it'd be edited or whatever for prison friendliness, but we'd see all those guys, and I'd say, these guys who are on here who are celebrities, so to speak, on the streets, this guy, what he does to make money in prison? He sells shots of coffee. Like he bags up, he buys a jar of coffee and he bags up coffee, and that's how he makes his little money. So before you go glamorizing him
and admiring these people,
this is what his reality is now. And now some of those guys are home and they're trying to use that wire to pivot to create fame, and good for them. Do your thing. I wish you the best. But the reality of it is that we all suffered. We all suffered. There's no, those guys who are even going to get some success off it, you can't bring back 30 years in prison. Most of those guys did 30 plus. Like, the sad part of it is, the reality of it is that my 16 years was baby food compared to most. I was in maximum security where I didn't even talk about me having a 30-year sentence because mostly everyone around me had double, triple, quadruple that or letters, life, right? So that was a big thing you couldn't talk about. How am I going to talk about, I go up for parole in the next 5 years when I got a cell buddy of mine who has double life and whatever? You know what I mean? Like, so it's like a lot of those guys didn't think they were getting out either. A new law came out, and it ended up freeing a lot of my friends who I thought were never going to get out, right? And
the crazy thing that I think about when I talk, I think about people that are kind of living that type of lifestyle is number one, subhanallah, like this thought is crazy to me. But in the moment, sometimes, and maybe you've experienced this yourself, but when you do something bad and you get away with it, just like I could experience it because even when I was a kid, when I put my hand in the cookie jar, I get the cookie, but my mom's not looking. I feel that sense of like I can get away with it. So at a certain point, when it keeps happening, you feel that sense of like arrogance. It's like I'm on top of the world. Then you're talking about also like the experience of having to make that much money. It's like a person's kind of thinking to themselves like, what else do I need in this world? You know what I mean? So the crazy thing is like you have that experience, and then right after, once you go to jail, it humbles you.
It humbles you quickly.
Right?
Quick, fast. There's nothing more humbling than prison. Nothing more humbling than prison. Like, you go from being somebody, and it's crazy. You go from being somebody to nobody, then you become somebody again in prison, and then you get released and become nobody again.
So it's just a cycle.
It's just a cycle. And then now you have to deal with it with all of the, and that's the hard one. This one, you go from being somebody, then you go to prison, become nobody, and then you go here. And then the last one, this is why people go back, because now they're nobody again, and they don't know how to deal with it on the outside. It's easier to go back where they're recognized and where they're known, and they don't have the patience. I don't know. I think I was ready to go back to Baltimore. I think. But alhamdulillah, I came to Canada. I got deported to Canada. Because had I not,
so that's why Niagara Falls. You know, because I was wondering. I was like,
I got deported.
Did you do your time in over there in America?
Yes.
Okay.
I did my time but because I was born in Canada,
okay,
they deported me to Canada.
Yeah.
So here it is. Now I'm 39 years old.
Yeah.
Never been to Canada.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say a day of my life, but since a baby.
Yeah.
And now they just drop me off and say, there you go.
Yeah.
But alhamdulillah, Canada is a place where you have no excuse. And Canada, honestly, you have no excuse. Everything is set up for you to make it if you truly want it. If you truly want it and you want to go get it, it's there for you. There's so many opportunities here where you can go and you can get it. People, you know, people suffer out here, but it's because they don't have that drive in them to say, you know what, I'm not going to be denied. Like, it's out there, I'm going to get it. Because that's like, it's funny how when your back is against the wall, how when you know there's nobody who's going to catch you, how you'll produce, how you'll come up with a way to make it happen, right?
And one powerful thing, my bad, Ismail, but one powerful thing that you mentioned was the aspect of like admiration towards these people. I think one thing that I think about is like people, like very notable people. I think about Michael Jordan. I think about Jay-Z, 50 Cent.
Can we throw LeBron in there?
Throw LeBron in there. You know, like you see all these people, and like you can name, I could continue like this whole podcast by naming all these different names, but you look at those people and you see that not only the youth, but maybe even some people in this room might have admired them at one point or a time, right? But the crazy thing that I think about it is like when you admire these people or try to model your life after these people, these guys are everyday people just like you. They bleed red, you know? And the crazy thing is those people make mistakes. And at the end of the day, like those people, if you put so much trust and belief in these people, they're just going to end up disappointing you at the end of the time. So I think to myself, like one message that I kind of feel like I taking out of your story, you know, from that little bit is like that fact that, you know, the people that you should be looking up to are the people like the Sahabas or the people like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know what I mean? Like those type of people, even they themselves, like they come from, you know, like a humble background. Like they didn't necessarily believe that they were the big ones. But when you see a guy like LeBron James or you see a guy like Michael Jordan, they come from a place of pride. And that's just their MO. Like that's what they need to have. Where when you have somebody like the Prophet or somebody like the Sahabas, it was sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you have somebody who's you know, like perfect. They're close to it. You know what I mean? So the thing is, like, you should put your thoughts or beliefs and everything into those people. Like you should want to model yourself after those people.
100%. That's the basis of Islam. That's what are we told to do? Emulate the Prophet. That's it. In his mannerisms, and the things he did, and the things he didn't do, and all of that. We do that, we're fine. We don't do that, we won't be fine. Simple as that.
Exactly. I have a question. So you were facing 30 years, but you got off at 16, right?
Yeah, I made parole.
Oh, you made parole. Okay. So I would say is like, what's one or maybe two lessons that you learned over those 16 years?
Lessons?
Or like kind of realizations that you hold on with you?
Did you ever feel like that sense of like what? And also another thing is like at what point did you kind of feel that sense of like regret? Like, damn, I shouldn't have done this. Did it hit instantly?
No, it didn't hit instantly. I remember I had about 5 years in. It's crazy as it may sound. I was sitting in my cell one day, and it was night, and I'm laying there, and I ended up having a single cell at this time. I was in there by myself, and I was like looking at the walls and looking around. And I was like, man, I'm not even close to getting out. Like, I got a long way to go. It just hit me like hard, right? And I remember August 3rd, 2009. August 3rd, 2009, I had that aha moment, like that moment where I was like, even though I've done okay up until this point, I had to like ask myself, answer those hard questions. Like, oftentimes we do things and we're not honest with ourselves. We think we are, but we're really not. And I sat there for like 2 days in that cell, and I was like just going over my life from the time I could remember to the current time. And I was asking myself, like, when this happened, why did I do this? How did I feel when my mom did this? How did I feel when this guy did this? How did I feel when, and I was asked all those serious, tough questions. And when I finally came up with the real answer, I said, man, I felt sad when that happened. I felt mad when that happened. And I called my mom and I said, listen, I need you to just listen to me and not interrupt me and for nothing. She said, okay. And I said, when I was 8 years old and you did this, this is how I felt. So why did you do this? And why did you, when I was such and such, and I went on in the conversation, you have 30 seconds remaining? I said, I'll call you right back. Boom. And I continued. And finally, after the second conversation, she was in tears crying. And then, we hung up. I said, okay, boom. The next day when I called back, she called me and she said, I need you to listen. And she started telling me her life story. When I was little, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. And we finally took real muhasibah, real introspection of life and what happened and this and that, and started at those deep, tough questions. She started explaining to me, so this is why I did this is why I did that, this is why I did this. And it gave us understanding, and we both were able to heal. We needed that healing process, because oftentimes in life people go through things and you don't know what your parents went through back home. Mm-hmm. We don't know what they went through, the reason they're hard on you, the reason they do this or the reason they do that. You don't know that, that they suffered, they went through this or they went through that, trying to get things done. So it was those moments that when you asked, like, those were the defining moments. I remember the date, like to the date, August 3rd, 2009. I started telling people, because although I was like deaning and on my dean, I'd still do, like, if a guy might tell me to give, like, yo, pass this to such and such for me, and I grab it and give it to him, knowing that what I'm giving him is haram, but I'm in that street life. I've been knowing these guys since this life, and although I'm Muslim, and now all of a sudden I start telling people no, like, and they're looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm saying no, like, so they're like, what you mean no? Yo, I'm not doing that no more. You even gonna like it or not? And people started looking at me crazy, but I had to, like, take charge of, I had to stop living for other people and do what's right regardless of how people felt about me. So that was it.
Yeah, no, that's, man, it's like, it comes back to, like, in the beginning of what you're saying about the podcast, you saying no to your friends and people looking at you different. It's like, even like us, like friend groups and stuff like that, like when one person decides to, like, kind of like, yo, I'm done with these kind of things, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes people, they don't want it because, like, they're afraid.
They're afraid.
Yeah. Like, they're afraid of what people are going to think, like, the friends, what they're going to think and stuff like that. So it's tough sometimes just to take yourself out of an environment like that, because you don't want you know, the homies thinking, yo, this guy's just trying to be different now, you know, and all that. Yeah.
When you're in debt and your back's against the wall, the homies ain't gonna be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe one or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
You know what's a great point, like how they're not going to be there, is like, I wanted to ask you this. I don't know if you wanted to answer it, but I remember you said that they wanted to tell on you, but you didn't tell on them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys say it's the street code, like, yo, no snitching, no all this. What is your words to people who think about that, or like snitching in general, or like you who went by the street code, you said I'm not snitching,
Mm-hmm.
and it happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say about that?
That's a tough question. Very good question.
Yeah.
For me, if you're involved with that life, there's rules to that life. You live by those rules. Don't live by that life. We don't live by that life. We're Muslims, right? We're Muslims, right? Be Muslim first. If you're Muslim first and only Muslim, then you just live by the laws of Islam. You don't have to worry about all the other stuff. So you do whatever is correct Islamically, because our goal is Jannah. So whatever that entails, if that means doing whatever, then that's what you do. But if you're in the streets and because I remember a guy told me, say, if you're gonna be bad, be bad. Like if you're gonna do it, don't fake, right? I'm not condoning that at all, but what I'm saying is be Muslim. If you're Muslim, do whatever it takes to do what, like guys in that lifestyle, they're gonna do it how they're gonna, and you're gonna find that most people are gonna fold under pressure anyway.
Yeah.
The majority are gonna fold under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question before we wrap up. But you kind of talked a little bit about the program that you started. I kind of want to know a little bit more about that right before we conclude. But like, tell us a little bit more about the program.
Okay, so what happened? I'll try to be quick. There was a program called the Youth Challenge Program that we had in medium security prison. This program talks about emotional expression and all of just stuff, job versus career and anger management and all of that stuff. I was a facilitator to this program. So later on, I ended up getting transferred to another medium security prison that turned into a maximum security prison while I was there. You can house a medium security inmate in a maximum security prison. You just can't house a maximum security prisoner in a medium security prison. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm stuck in this maximum security prison now. So they knew that I had been involved with this youth challenge program and asked me to be like a facilitator for this program, a mentor for the program, because I had experience with it, which makes sense. So I did. Around the third or fourth week of me doing this with all these young kids under the age of 25, and we're doing this, we come up with job versus career. And so the part of the lesson is that you do mock job interviews. So here it is, I'm supposed to act like I'm the guy and you're trying to get a job, and I ask you questions. Mm-hmm. I look around the room and I realize that not one guy in here has less than 80 years, right? I said, I'm not going to disrespect these kids and give them, they're not going home to get no daggone job right now. So I went to the psychology department. I said, listen, it's a great program, but it's just not for these guys. It doesn't fit their needs. So they're like, well, what do you have in mind? I said, can I create something that's geared towards them to have like goal setting, how to be a father in prison, time management, emotional expression, like certain things, like just to have a definite chief aim, because they have to have hope, to just create hope in them, right? And they allowed me, so I created a program called Self-Made Man, and that's what they focused on, was like goals, having a definite chief aim, time management, nutrition, how to have financial literacy even in prison. Like that you can still save your money and, have a goal, write a book, giving them examples of people who had did a lot of time and still were successful, such as Tukey Williams and Malcolm X and whoever, these other people, to give them some type of, these are your role models. This is who you want to go after, right? So that's what happened. And the program took off so much so that it became a part of that prison. And then they started running it throughout the state of Maryland, and it did good.
Wow, about it. That's amazing.
I want to say, just to kind of conclude, I just want to start off by thanking you for coming on the episode. We really appreciate you for coming. And the one thing I'm gonna say, and we'll kind of give you the floor, because I have one actually last question. But I just want to thank you again and say that, you know, like the aim for the podcast was, you know, like not necessarily, and we talked about this a little bit, but not to necessarily glorify the street life. You know what I mean? I think that wasn't the aim of the episode. I think the aim of the episode was to kind of shed light, you know, and again, I always talk about this almost every episode, but, you know, like for the youth out there, you know, like I have experience like working with them, and a lot of the people, some of the people might be watching, right, might be experiencing some of the stuff that you're going through, that you had gone through, right? So to look at it from a perspective of, you know, like we think one powerful thing that somebody told me before was history is, you know, just not something like you think about as like gym class or something like that. Those type of classes are just, you just take it for whatever. But history is, you learn that stuff in order to avoid making the same mistakes that you did before. And I think that's one thing that kind of stuck with me, and that's why your story is so powerful. And I feel like we also talked about this too a lot on the pod, but it's the butterfly effect. And what that is like sometimes like these little small things that could happen in your life of you telling your story can impact a greater audience. You know what I mean? And I think that your story is so powerful, and I feel like sometimes it's hard. I know, you know, like not necessarily from experience, but, you know, judging for me, like it's not the easiest thing kind of talking about, you know, things that I've done or things that happen. You know, it's very hard, you know, but at the same time, like for you to come out and speak your mind, you know, inshallah, I hope it inspires people to change. It creates that. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you for coming.
And I appreciate you guys for having me. And I'm available to anybody who may have problems or who may be facing issues. If these guys have my number, if you want to talk, whatever it is, if it's 5 minutes, you want a pep talk or you want a new friend, I'm in Ottawa. I'm available. You know, I like to meet new people. If I can help you in any way, I will. Whether it's helping you find a job, whether it's helping you in life, whatever it is, in any way that I can help you, I volunteer myself.
Yeah, so we'll make sure to get your contact available to others out there.
Yeah, and you know, I really think that program, you should try to do it outside. Like, I think
so it was while you're in there, right?
See,
so you should, for real.
Initially, that was my goal when I came home. I thought that I was going to just go home because I had so much momentum built in there. I was going to go home and just be a youth counselor. Simple as that. I was good at it. I knew what I was doing. And I got out here and the need wasn't as, and I didn't know what. And then what happens was I got this thing called rent. It was like they wanted me to pay it every month, right? And I was like, I can't look for a job because this daggone thing called rent keeps wanting their money, right? And then you get caught up in that rat race. Once you sign up for bills, they're yours for life, right? And then you just start having kids, and you know what I mean? Like now everything's about money, right? So. Yeah, but inshallah.
We'll definitely I'll try to connect you with some people that maybe help set it up. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna get out this oil field, trust me.
My
beard and
my brother told me the same thing. They shave the beard.
You gotta shave your beard. So if you see me without the beard, it's because I just came from work, man.
Exactly.
We work around a dangerous gas called hydrogen sulfide.
Yeah.
And in order, you have to wear masks sometimes.
Exactly,
and in order for the mask to get a correct seal or proper seal.
Yeah, it's kind of like an N95, like the correct sealing.
Yeah, it has
no facial hair.
No facial hair.
Yeah.
Or because if you breathe it in, you'll die.
Exactly. Oh, okay, that's dangerous. Yeah. No, 100%. I just like Yusuf said, I really appreciate it, and I hope that it's this episode's very inspirational to everybody. And if you guys want to have brother Abdul Kareem, sorry, I'm stuttering on my words. Abdul Kareem back. Just let us know in the comments.
Inshallah.
And I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And I'll see you guys next week.